It depends on the production I'm with. Sometimes they come to me with like an idea already mapped out, which is nice because then it takes a lot of the guesswork out. But you lose a little bit of the creativity on our end. What's nice is when you get to work with an actor or a producer or director that really wants to hear your ideas and input. One of my best experiences for just creative license was actually the film Vice. You wouldn't think much about it because it was just recreating certain looks. But Christian was wonderful in wanting to work with us in the makeup, and not just appliances, but even figuring out things like, he'd look at a picture and go, Dick Cheney's nostrils are flared more than mine, and can we do anything about that? And we made nose plugs for him. Or our DP, a guy named Greg Ferguson, was fantastic. He actually wanted me behind camera with him at all times. Usually I'm over at the monitor watching. He goes, no, 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 be here with me so you can see what I see, and that way if you see something wrong, you can fix it. So I think I attribute that to why the film did so well, you know, with the Oscars and everything. But I hope that answered your question. Once you develop a relationship with producers and directors, and you will in your career, some of them will start to know what you're capable of and trust you. That's the way it was on Teen Wolf, actually. You know, they were really good about letting us run with it. A lot of times Jeff Davis would come to us with a basic idea and sketch him out, or other times if he didn't have time, he'd say, I want something like this. Show me something, and then we'd get to play with it. Those were fun, but it's also stressful because if you nail it, you're on top of the world. But if they don't like what you do, then, you know, you feel horrible because you don't want to let anybody down. Yeah, and if I can make one suggestion, I know it might be a little archaic at this point, but a good portfolio layout is, if I see somebody bring that up to me that says this is somebody that really is like serious about their work. When somebody walks up and hands me their phone, or worse yet says, oh yeah, go to my Instagram. It's like, well, okay, I can do that, but show me that you actually have taken the time to put together a nice presentation. You know, the Instagram is great if you want to show somebody something on the fly, but for a formal review, it's nice to have portfolio. Yes? A range. Like if somebody comes up to me and they have just one thing in it, like a lot of gore, great, gore's important. But you know, I want to be able to see that they can do more than just that they have a good command of color theory, you know, that they understand human anatomy, you know, that they've taken the time to, you know, learn a little bit more. Because a lot of times when I hire somebody, I don't hire somebody for just one skill set. You know, the more you do, the more you get to do. You know?
Hey, where did I hear that before?
We talked about that earlier today. That I still live by that. Well, honestly, one of the new ones nowadays is Instagram. I mean, I'm not much of a social media guy. You're not going to find too much on me. But Instagram is good because it's just art. Kevin Kirkpatrick, you remember Kevin? Exactly, exactly. You know, he would have things on Instagram. My friend Justin Mabry from Trick or Treat Studios, he's Instagram. It's a nice way that if somebody isn't around you, but they hear your name, say, oh, let's check this guy's stuff out. You know, they can look it up and see it. Social media in that aspect is really good. But like I said, a good, solid portfolio is great to have in your wheelhouse. It's better than just going up to somebody and saying, oh yeah, I can do that, you know, or pulling out your phone. So. I am in Union Local 706, which is the LA-based makeup union. Took me about 7 years. I got lucky, believe it or not. Getting into the union is not easy, especially on the West Coast. It's kind of a catch-22. To get into the union, you have to do 30 union days, but to do union days, you need to be in the union. So it's screwed up. So basically what happened is I was on a show that was non-union, and the show flipped union, and that took me with it. The other ways to do it is if you work 60 non-union days on a non-union show for 3 years in a 5-year period. It doesn't have to be like 1, 2, 3. There could be a break in between. But if you do those days and you keep track of your hours, you can qualify for the union that way. I know several people who have gotten in that way. Eric, my partner, my business partner, Eric Porn, and believe it or not, Porn is actually his real name, but that's how he got in, was the non-union route. Oh, absolutely. With tattooing, I learned how to make generic tattoos. But more so than that, and this is something that's going to be really important for you guys, is chair-side manner. When you're working on somebody for hours at a chair, it's good to be able to talk to people and read them. And when I say read them, sometimes they don't want to talk. You know, maybe they're running lines in their head. But sometimes you get an actor that's really chatty, you know, and they want to talk to you and hear your input on things. So tattooing taught me how to talk to people and read them in a chair. And that's a little more extreme because what I'm doing to them there is painful and it's permanent. So if I can read them there, it's not so bad at the makeup chair. I'll show you. I don't know how many times I've worked on somebody, and that's just something you got to put up with nowadays, is cell phones, which is cool. I mean, it keeps people occupied. But when they start slouching in the chair and the phone comes up to the face, you got to kind of, come on, I only get you for an hour. Give me your hour. So, yeah, I'd say definitely cell phones in a makeup chair. Right now, pretty slow. You know, I'm in between projects right now, but generally, when we're shooting, it's you know, Monday through Friday, sometimes into Saturdays. And like I said earlier, a 12-hour day is a half day. So, I mean, if you're going to be on set, expect really long hours because... Oh boy, I designed Captain Mike's makeup. I made all the teeth for it and applied on set part of it. Huge, huge. I am not a punctual person, but when it comes to work, you have got to be there because everything is revolving around you. Makeup artists are like the Marines. We're the first ones in, we're the last ones out. The only people that are there longer than us are the Teamsters, and that's because they got to drive us. But yeah, you want to be on time. It's hugely important. If I have somebody show up late once, they get one warning. After that, they're out the door. I don't care how good a friend they are. You got to have reliable people. So. It's a tough one. I'm sorry, I don't mean to waffle on questions like that, but there's so many things. Like, I loved The Thing, the remake, the John Carpenter's The Thing. That was one of those films where, you know, they had a whole year of R&D. That's definitely one of my favorites. No, you're lucky if you get a couple of months. It's just nowadays, it's faster, quicker, you know, more. So when we do get time, it's great, you know, and it shows. Like for instance, not to harken back to Teen Wolf again, but a lot of that stuff, the big creatures in it, usually we were given an advance notice. We had these characters called the Dread Doctors, and we had two full months to build those guys. So, and it looks good. And then I forget what season it was. You probably know. The giant. No, not them. The Beast of Jebedo, the big giant werewolf, the digital one. It might have been 5. I think it was 5. Yeah, it was 5. We were going to do a suit for that. We had done these great designs. We were going to put a guy up on digistilts with a mechanical head and make this great monster. The budget was okay. They were happy with it. And then it was like, well, we don't think we're going to do that. So, okay, well, let us build, like, you know, the feet and an arm and a head. Well, we're going to go digital with it. And it did, and it ended up looking like a cartoon.
I was saying it didn't look, because the silhouettes, every silhouette, it looked like something from, like, back in the animated series.
True.
Very, like...
But in the defense of the CG guys there, they were really talented guys, but they weren't given enough time either, so the work suffered for that too.
Who makes that decision, that change?
The producers. Yeah, you know, money comes in. When you start getting later in the seasons, they tend to give you less money and less time. In fact, you'll probably notice on that show that you saw a lot more werewolves in the beginning seasons, and towards the end it was a lot of teeth and eyes. We ended up calling it Teeth and Eye Wolf. That was pretty much it. Because they didn't want to take the time to put the makeup on. And we had it down to under an hour at that point. We could do Tyler in about 45 minutes. And that's going back to what I said earlier about, you know, time is money. If a makeup takes too long, a lot of time it's going to get cut. So you gotta work with people and balance quality with practicality. Honestly, the type of makeup I do, generally speaking, spatter with an airbrush. I mean, I have nothing against handwork. In fact, it's a great tool too. But to get a base down quickly, and unlike beauty makeup where you're removing flaws, you know, my job is to create flaws in natural look. And the quickest way for me to do that is a layering technique and spattering. And you don't need a lot of fancy tools to do it. You know, you can even spatter using a cut down chip brush. You know, just flick it on. That's the way they do it in London, actually. A lot of times they don't use airbrushes over there. Actually, we're starting to get into that now. Our company, Bite Mares Inc., we've been doing 3D printing for a while for small things, you know, but we're actually looking into getting into it for dental stuff now. So, I mean, if we're still doing dental impressions, but then what we'll do is we will scan those. And then I'm now finally starting to learn ZBrush so that I can actually go in and model things. Because I like doing things by hand. I'm very much a tactile person. I like clay, I like wax. But a lot of times you'll spend hours on a design and then they'll want to just tweak it a little bit. My guy, Eric Porn, once again, he's our digital guy. Like, that's another thing too. If you want to, any of you that want to eventually open your own companies, try to work with people that their skill sets will complement yours. You know, a lot of times I'll see people that they won't be able to sculpt and they'll get, like, their ego will be bruised. It's like, no, it's okay. Work with somebody that has that skill set that complements yours, and that way you get the work done better. Like me, I don't know computers to save my life. I can barely turn the dang things on. But my partner is fantastic with computers and 3D printing, and because of him, we're now getting into modeling and things. Yeah. So you guys teach that now, don't you? You're starting to work with it? Good. Even if you don't want to do it, learn it. Because you learn it, it's a good skill set. I don't know if it's necessarily improved them for me because I'm just learning them, but I know it's going to broaden my palette. Because once again, it's a lot of times you'll sculpt something and then you'll have a producer say, make it 10% more menacing. What the heck's that mean? You know, how do you make something 10% more menacing? Well, the old way, it'd be resculpt it. But here, if you've got the file, you can tweak them. I think at one point there was close to 40 makeup artists. So it was pretty big. Yeah, and it wasn't just that. Like, I was responsible for one key character, but we would jump around and help in other areas as needed. Sometimes the makeup artist would get sick. We would lose somebody for whatever reason. So we would move around a bit, and we would also have to help maintain makeups for other people. But on top of that, I did all the teeth and also ran all the silicone on that one. It was a busy show. So in fact, my record for most hours worked in 1 week was 106 on that show, and I have yet to break that record. So didn't sleep a lot on that one. Oh, we do.
Like, do you do that personally, or do they have someone?
You bring in a lens tech.
Okay.
Yeah, I have put in contacts before. I can do it. I don't recommend it as an artist because, you know, you're working with makeup, you're working with glue. You know, your fingers have to be immaculate to put in lenses. But on top of that, if something goes wrong, you know, it's rare, but what if a lens rolls back behind somebody's eye? You need somebody that's trained to be able to get those out. So, and a lot of times a producer, I'll be right with you, a lot of times the producers, they'll want to go on the cheap and say, well, just can't you put the lenses in? And it says, yes, but no. You know, always have a lens tech. Well, just, you know, what you get out of it, what you put into it. You know, you're making monsters. Let's be honest, this is one of the funnest jobs in the world you can have. I mean, you get to create monsters. Exactly. I'm a 48-year-old kid. But you only get out of it what you put into it. So the more you work and study and try to learn, the better off as an artist you're going to be. Not to mention it gives you a better work ethic. And makeup artists and shops, you're going to see that. And that's another thing too, I've noticed a lot nowadays is a lot of times people get into the business and they'll automatically want to go to set. Set's cool. And it's, you know, you get to see a lot of things happen. But take advantage of the shop environment. I learned in the shops, that's where I started. And it benefited me because when I first moved to LA, if I'd have been set onto a union set, they would have eaten me alive. You know, you gotta learn how things work and understand things. And take it very serious because the guy behind you will. You know, if you don't do your job and show up on time, the next person will. That's why I like Flexor Crew. Yeah, that's better because it's friendly plastic is good, but it's harder.
It's great for making things.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, if somebody has undercuts, not good. But if they don't, friendly plastic's fine. But another thing, we'll get people on set, like especially on Nosferatu. Kids would come in from the first season, I'd made teeth for them. They came in for the second season to get refit, and they got braces. Well, you can't put that stuff. Yeah. You can't put that stuff over braces, you know, and they're like, well, why not? It's because it's going to lock onto it, and they're going to wear those teeth home, and they're going to have them for months. So, yeah, undercuts, definitely. But Flexor Krill is nice for that. And there is another one, the name is escaping me right now, but there's a silicone material that's even softer. So,
and you can put that right in the
yeah, it's a lining material like Flexor Krill, but it's a silicone. So,
it's also just more comfortable.
Yeah.
A nice soft thing that your teeth are sinking into.
Absolutely. And in the perfect world, customs are better, but a lot of times customs, it's not practical.
But when they're walking in off the street like Day of the Dead,
Yeah,
small, medium,
that's
large,
great.
Flexicurl,
No, it's the only way to do it. I would love to see those.
Oh, the generic?
Oh, yeah.
They're just blank, you know.
Just blank. It's history, Tom. Come on. I'm a tooth nerd. I love that
I'll put
stuff.
them in the museum.
Please. Generally, we'll send them away. But if it's an emergency where like they really need them, what I've done in the past is there's this pink wax you can buy. It comes in a plate. It's just a thin sheet pink wax. It's a dental wax. You can heat that up and then stick them in with that because that's just a wax that'll come out. So I've had to do that before, but I don't like doing that because then all of a sudden the 80s will just start sending you kids with braces after you've set parameters. So don't do this. You know, don't cast these people.
But if they're acting in the show and they're wearing braces,
well, that's
then when they've got teeth, the teeth should have braces on them, like the actor. Like
exactly. Well, and honestly, if it's a principal, I've never run into that problem where they've had to have it.
Probably make a cast with braces in it.
Yep, exactly. Yes, actually I have. There was a show a few years back called Ugly Betty. We made braces for those. We didn't do the heroes. Those were already done. They had a dentist do it. But for her stand-in and doubles and everything, we made braces for them. Well, earlier I said I started working with a company called Trick or Treat Studios, making masks. That's kind of what did it for me because I was getting burned out. It was literally just to the next job for work, and I hadn't done anything creative in a long time. And I made friends with Justin Mabry, who's one of the owners of the company and helped set it up. Fantastic guy and a good friend. And he said, yeah, you want to make a mask, make a mask. So that kind of did it for me because it isn't about the money at that point. It's that I made something, it's out there, and then every quarter I get to see people liked it and bought some. It's a lot of fun.
But that's one of the companies that a potential student can work at. I mean,
absolutely.
When we first started, when you were here teaching, we thought we were training people just to work in movies. But then we realized that training allows you to work in toy companies,
absolutely.
Companies,
absolutely.
Labs, prosthetic labs,
yep.
You know, there's a bunch of places that the training, you know, gets you into.
No, absolutely. This is a great foundation. You can take this in so many different directions now, especially with the way things are nowadays. Exactly. Yeah, you're not locked into just one thing. And say you want to do makeup effects, but maybe you necessarily don't want to apply. Maybe you like making wigs, or maybe you like lab work. You know, they're all hugely important skill sets. Challenging job? Recently, I'd probably say Vice. because my company, we were working with Greg Canham on that show. He designed it, but we built all the makeups, produced all the pieces, and applied it every day. So it was a lot, and it wasn't just Christian. It was Amy Adams we did, and then for both, Amy had 3 different looks and Christian had 5. And some days we would do 2 to 3 makeup changes on him in one day. So it was pretty tough.
Well, who gets the credit on that if there was like an Oscar or something?
Well, Greg got the Oscar for that one because he was the designer. Yep. We both got nominated for the BAFTAs, and I won a Guild Award and a Critics' Choice Award for that one.
Excellent.
But yeah, because he was the designer, he's got that one.
And what does that mean, designer? Like he sculpted it, or?
Nope, nope, he just oversaw the design of it. If you have the designer credit, you are at the top of the food chain.
Wait, so he looked at your stuff and said, "Oh, that's okay. That's as far. That's him."
Well, he
Someone
would sit
else
down
did
with,
it.
well, he would sit with the sculptors too, like Brian Wade. You know Brian.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
You know, Brian was our key sculptor on this. Fantastic. And that's a guy, an example that, you know, is in the business, is well known, makes a great living, but all he does is sculpt. That was his path that he took. And we hired him, and Greg would sit with Brian, and as Brian was pushing the clay, Greg would make directions, because even though Greg's, you know, not a young man anymore, his eye, he's got such a fantastic eye for design. And he beat me up for about 10 years, so I learned a lot from him. So it was good. Good question. No, I mean, if you can draw, great, but you don't, it's not a prerequisite to being a good makeup artist. To be a good makeup artist, really, it's attention to detail, being able to look at things, I mean, really look at them. Like when I look at your face, I don't see just one color. I see dozens of colors, you know. There's yellows, greens, pinks, purples, oranges, you know, they're all in there. And when you create a makeup, you need to be able to put all that back in. A lot of times I'll see a makeup and it just looks flat, you know, and it's, you know, it isn't that the person is a bad artist per se, they just haven't trained their eye yet to see all those little details and minutiae. It's hugely important. I hope that answered your question, yeah.
Do you sketch?
I do. I'm not a great, it's funny, I started out as a tattoo artist. I learned when I was in the Navy, actually. And I got pretty good, you know, I could do nice work, but I'm more of a 3D guy.
But that's a common question. Do you have to be able to draw and sketch? I can't. I don't sketch. I get somebody else to do it.
That I honestly, if I have a budget, I'm going to hire the best people for the job. I have no ego. Like, well, Vice, we hired Brian Wade. You know, it's like, let's get the best people in there to do the job, make it all look good, and we all look better. So.
I can do it, but it takes an awful long time.
Yeah, well, and not to mention the fact, if you're running a show, as you well know, a lot of times you don't have time to do all that creative stuff. You're overseeing a crew. So you got to be able to bring the proper people in to do the job. This has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate you guys having me out. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chris.
To you guys, the future.
All right, look better.
My mentors.